Just one moment, we'll confirm that the live stream is back.
Great.
Julianne, if you could just let us know.
You are up and running. Go for it.
Good evening. Good to be back. Will report that we met in camera to discuss a land issue and some instructions was given there. Seeing no other agenda on the Parks, Recreation and Culture Committee, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to return to corporate services for a discussion on a meeting.
So moved. Seconded.
Moved by Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor Green. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary of mine, motion's carried. Councillor Perry, back on your agenda.
Thank you. I'd like to recall the Corporate Residential Services Committee to order. The last item we have on topic for today, Warden.
I was just getting on the list.
Oh, okay. All right. The last item we have on the order of stuff today is the resumption of in-person meetings as the COVID restrictions have been lifted. First up to speak, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Yeah, just giving you my completely personal preference and opinion on this, and you know, certainly happy to be guided by the will of council. Under the current guidelines, the restrictions that just came off, we are able to go back in person. With any number of public there, we would have to use room 168 and keep track of how many people were coming and going and how many staff were in the room at any time and that. For perhaps almost the first time since the pandemic started, I find myself not 100% in agreement with the public health guidelines, given the number of new cases every day is still in the hundreds and the amount of people that are in the hospital. And because I have personally, this is just my personal opinion, I have young grandchildren that I am in contact with regularly that cannot yet be vaccinated. And I guess for those reasons, I would be more comfortable staying with the Zoom meetings for the month of February and see how the relaxed guidelines are going, with a plan to resume in-person meetings for the meetings in March. That's my personal preference. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next up to speak, Councillor Rhino.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warden. Really, I do believe that we should be meeting in our council chambers. We took protective measures to do that. However, I would, you know, be willing to compromise that as of the 1st of March, we move back into in-camera meetings. So that would leave a council meeting next week on Zoom. And I don't believe now that we've set the rate, do we need another budget meeting or do we? No, Kim is shaking her head. So maybe it would be, I would feel it would be prudent to start as of the 1st of March. Any meeting scheduled for March would be then return to in camera. Now that's my only opinion. So go from there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Warden Rolston.
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to go along with that. My only question would be that we do have one meeting early in March that is fire advisory, which is some members of the public. We don't normally, you know, I don't know what they're, I just wonder if it would be okay if the public members of fire advisory felt more comfortable to do it by Zoom, if we would do that one by Zoom. Public members, you know, I'll go either way, but these are public members of council and it is, I believe, scheduled for the 3rd of March. That's my only question there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Deputy Warden Mitchell.
I'm okay with doing fire advisory in March by Zoom until we get the clarification from the public members on their status. And
Okay. Is there anybody else like to speak? Counselor Musa,
I'm the same too.
Counselor Tingley,
Yeah, I'm comfortable with continuing on Zoom. If others want to continue on Zoom, like I'm fine to go back tomorrow. But if others are more comfortable on Zoom, that's fine with me.
Counselor Rhino.
So just to clarify, so that I am not a member of fire advisory, so what the warden is saying, if the majority of the committee members on fire advisory want to either do it in person or do it by Zoom, it would be done then by majority. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah,
And all other meetings then from that point on would be done in person unless there is further restrictions placed upon us.
unless there are further restrictions or something else happens.
Counselor Hebb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think any meeting after fire advisory could be opened to open council chambers, but up until then, I think we should continue Zoom.
Thank you, Counselor. Yeah, no, I agree. We don't know what's going to happen come March 1st. Saw on the news today, unfortunately, Nova Scotia lost 6 more souls. So, COVID's not over. Things are still going on. We are also heading in right now as we get closer to March break. It also seems to be flu season. So we'll have to, if somebody has the sniffles and has any symptoms and they cannot attend council sessions. So if you display symptoms, you're supposed to isolate for so many days until you get a test. So I don't know, maybe the CAO or somebody can correct me on the policy. If a counselor is feeling the symptoms of what could be COVID or the common flu, because it's the same, what is the protocol that they would report to the warden? Would it be regrets, or with the technology is the ability for them to link in and still fulfill their duties underneath this current situation? What would be the impression of the rest of council if that situation was to arise? Councillor Green.
Well, I'd be good if the technology is here to link up. That would be also, it would depend on how that counselor was actually feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it affects everybody in a different way. Some have very little symptoms to none, and some people are quite sick. So I think that would be a decision that counselor would have to make. And if it was available, he could certainly utilize it.
Warden.
Well, I would certainly agree with that, but I believe that we have a motion or regulation on the book that say we can't do that.
Councillor Rhino.
I would move that we return to in-person sessions as of the 1st of March, other than March the 3rd meeting of fire advisory. If the date is wrong, correct it, and that be left to the majority of fire advisory committee.
We have a motion.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion is passed unanimously. Warden Rolston.
I just wonder if perhaps we could ask the CAO to check into it and just hopefully no counselors. I'm thinking about staff members as well, and it's not so bad now that we're done budget. And by doing budget in Zoom, we could have theoretically had finance staff members who wouldn't have been able to come and present had they gotten ill in open council, but the opportunity would still be there in Zoom. And the same as with going to open council with as many cases as there are. I just think I'd like to have it looked into, that if any member of council or any member of staff who was required to be at a meeting and felt well enough to be at the meeting but had symptoms or whatever and couldn't come in person, that there could be an opportunity made for any of those persons to participate using the technology.
Councilor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I might point out as well that it can also be if you're isolating due to
Yeah.
a family member, which can happen so easily. We have so many staff and people out at school that I know that is such a possibility. So that as well.
Go ahead, Shirley.
I just wanted to draw your attention that your council procedural policy actually does say that while web conferencing is not used for councilors to attend meetings remotely in general, it also does allow it to happen with consent of council. So if you did have a member that needed to web conference in that situation, that could technically happen, and it is permitted under your policy if council gives permission.
Okay, so that clarifies things. The last item I would bring up before I get to you, Warden Rolston, we do have presenters scheduled for presentations in March. Correct. Now, do we have a status vaccination for people to enter chambers to present, or is that not an issue? So we have no requirement for that. Okay. Warden Rolston.
Just to avoid any issues, should anything come up between now and then, and I guess perhaps this would be a council meeting, but I would move to recommend to council that council give consent for any councillor who is isolating because of COVID or isolating for any reason and not able to attend the meeting, be allowed to participate have council's permission to participate by web conferencing. And then you don't have to worry about it if someone calls the day before and says, oh, I have to isolate, my child has tested positive. Then you don't have to scramble and try and contact council to.
Councilor Rhino.
I don't have a problem with that as long as that doesn't become a fear thing and somebody use that as an excuse. I really don't want to go because I'm scared of catching something. As long as that is legitimate, I really don't have a concern.
Councilor Hebb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is that short term or is that going to be long term for the duration of us as councillors?
I was just intending it to be while COVID was active.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so that'd be during the state of emergency
Yes.
for COVID. Okay.
Did we have a seconder on that?
I was just going to ask that
Okay, thank
question.
you.
Do we have a seconder on that motion? Councilor Hebb. There we go.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. And the motion is passed unanimously. So, seeing nothing else left on the agenda, I'll be looking for the motion to adjourn. There will be a policy meeting following this. Councilor Hebb.
I'm just wondering, is there going to be a meeting Thursday night?
No, there will not be a meeting Thursday night, but we do have a policy meeting following this committee day.
Very good, thank you.
So I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn and reconvene the policy.
No moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Moved by Councilor Hebb, seconded by Councilor Green. All those in favor?
All right.
All right. We are adjourned.
I will just draw your attention that there will be no need for the Parks and Recreation Culture Committee report.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, only the corporate services. Thank you.
Should I read the land acknowledgement?
You can if you wish. There's no requirement at this point.
So let me know if we're ready.
You're good. You're good.
Okay, I would call this meeting of council to order. Going to open by reading the land acknowledgement. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are Mi'kma'ki in the district of Sipekne'katik, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We have two items on the agenda, one item on the agenda this afternoon. First from Corporate and Residential Services, so I'll turn it over to you, Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The committee held its budget meeting on February 8th, 2022. its regular meeting on February 15th, 2022 via Zoom. The following policy related motions are coming forward as a result of those meetings. Policy for winter clearing standard for roads and sideways. The Corporate Residential Service Committee recommends to council that council give notice of intent to approve the extension of the sideway performance standards for plowing, de-icing, and snow removal found in the ESANS policy for winter clearing standard for roads and sidewalks to municipally owned paved active transportation pathways at Ashford Way, Cayley Lane, and Tyler Street. Providing winter maintenance to future municipality-owned active transportation pathways that fit the following criteria: are built to a sidewalk standard and fully paved at a minimum of 1.5 meters wide, are an extension of municipally owned and year-round maintained sidewalks or active transportation route within the urban service rate area, and provide connectivity between municipal and or provincial assets. As chair of the committee, I so move.
We have a seconder, seconded by Councillor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the motion is passed unanimously.
As chair of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Second.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried. There is no Parks and Rec motion, as we will deal with that on Wednesday night. So that concludes the business for our council meeting this evening. So I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved by Councillor Perry, seconded by Councillor Eisner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion has carried. We are adjourned. And Cheryl Lee, you'll let us know